There's my cue. Welcome to this sacred space. My name is Kate Franta, and on behalf of First Unitarian Church of Wilmington, Delaware, I welcome you to our worship service, both here in the sanctuary and those of you streaming at home. The generous, welcoming spirit of our Unitarian Universalist faith extends to you in all of your diversity of body, mind, and spirit. No matter the hue of your skin, your faith history, or lack thereof, and no matter whom you love, you are welcome here. We are a community of seekers who recognize that we are all connected. And to get or stay connected, I invite you to go to our website at firstuuwilm.org and sign up for our e-news. While you are there, check out our calendar of fun opportunities to connect with each other. And now, let us prepare our hearts and minds for worship.
Good morning. I'm the Reverend Larry Piers, minister here at First Unitarian Church of Wilmington, and I'm taking a good look at you. You all look well-fed and grateful for hopefully you had a pleasant and enjoyable season of gratitude during this time. Thank you so much, Seth Hammond, who's a member of our congregation and our guest musician today. That piece by Philip Glass was just a wonderful way for us to enter into this worship. And I did a little research on Philip Glass this week, and I want to share this one quote from his writings, which relate to our theme this morning. Philip Glass said that traditions are imploding and exploding everywhere. Everything is coming together, for better or worse. And we can no longer pretend we are all living in different worlds because we're on different continents. I do want to acknowledge the passing of a public figure this week. And some of you may know that Bishop Carlton Pearson was a friend of Unitarian Universalists and a much stronger light than I'm able to produce here. Great. Maybe an unlikely friend from the surface. he had grown up in an African-American Pentecostal tradition, even worked in the ministry teams of Billy Graham and Oral Roberts. But at one point he had a vision and a conviction around a broader, more inclusive, what he called a gospel of inclusion, of a God that would welcome people of various world religious traditions into heaven, and a divine love that could embrace people in spite of their differences and the judgments that people might have had about them. A God that would embrace lesbian and gay people. And because of sharing that vision, his congregation excluded him, and he joined for a period of time at All Souls Unitarian Church in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where his congregation met, and over time, where they became incorporated into some of the ministries of that congregation. So he died this past week at age 70, and I want us to just take a moment and appreciate the light of his life, particularly that light of an inclusive gospel that we need to hear in a time in which division and hatred can sometimes feel that they're taking over, but we need to hear and experience the warmth of this light and all of those who at times arise and share with the world a message of love. So let's pause for a moment in appreciation and gratitude for Bishop Carlton Pearson's life and message. May his life and message radiate through the way that we live our life and through the way that we demonstrate an inclusivity and a warmth to all. So may it be. Our call to worship this morning is adapted from Jason Shelton. Here in reverence now we gather for the blessings we have known, with a pledge to one another that we journey not alone. Joy and sorrow make us wise, kin to all that lives and dies. Love calls us on. Love calls us on. Words and deeds of those before us waken here to keep us strong. Blend our voices in the chorus of creation's living song. Courage bids us to lift our eyes upward to the shining skies. Hope calls us on. Hope calls us on. Let's join together now in a time of worship.
If you have a chalice at home, I invite you to join me by lighting it now as I read these words by Deborah Falk. The chalice lit among us is a beacon of hope in a world in crisis, a beacon of possibility made manifest in community, a beacon of warmth through our interconnections, a beacon of light illuminating our shared wisdom, a beacon of connection by our being together. Now please rise in body or spirit as we sing hymn 175 with the words appearing up on the screen, and remain standing after our hymn.
For we can see
join me in affirming our mission. First Unitarian Church of Wilmington is a beloved community that nourishes minds and spirits, fights injustice, and transforms the world through loving action.
Let's join together now in a time of prayerful meditation. Feeling grateful for all that is our life, sensing the presence of one another and the presence of all those that enrich our lives from day to day, sensing the fire within us that wants to spread more love and radiate more joy and make room for more gratitude. I adopted these words from this prayer from Samuel Pugh, which for me captures the sense of our interconnectedness with one another, an interconnectedness that sometimes we need to remind ourselves about. Spirit of life, love, and compassion, God of many names and no name at all. When I have food, help me to remember the hungry. When I have work, help me to remember the jobless. When I have a home, help me to remember those who have no home at all. When I am without pain, help me to remember those who suffer. And remembering, help me to destroy my complacency, bestir my compassion, and be concerned enough to help by word and deed those who cry out for what we may sometimes take for granted. Let's join now in a time of shared silence, following which we will share our own prayers for one another, those we care about, and this world. So let's join first in silence, paying attention to whatever concerns we are holding in our own heart, and alongside of that, whatever joys we might also be holding. So, what are the concerns that you might be holding in your own heart this morning that weigh you down or extend your care to someone in your life, for yourself, or for our common world? You may state them in this room aloud or write them in the chat. What are your concerns this morning?
Ukraine.
May we not feel that these concerns we have to hold alone. May we feel the love and the compassion of others. May we feel a presence that allows us to hold these concerns and to be that presence of love in another's life as well. Alongside of our sorrows or concerns, there might also be some joys that are welling up within us. Maybe simple joys, maybe whispers of joy that want to be heard within us and maybe even in this room. What joys might you have this morning? And what a joy to be with you this morning as well. May all whose names were spoken and those unspoken find peace and healing this day. Amen.
This is a story called Indra's Net. Far, far away in the abode of the great god Indra, king of heaven, hangs a wondrous and vast net, much like a spider's web in intricacy and loveliness. It stretches out indefinitely in all directions. At each node or crossing point of the net hangs a single glistening jewel. Since the net itself is infinite in dimension, the jewels are infinite in number. The sparkling jewels hang there, suspended in and supported by the net, glittering like stars, dazzling to behold. Close your eyes. Imagine what this magnificent jeweled net looks like, spread across the vast expanse of space. Now, keep your eyes closed and move in close to one jewel in the net. Look closely, and you will see the polished surface of the gem reflects all the other jewels in the net, infinite in number. Just as two mirrors placed opposite each other reflect an image ad infinitum, each jewel reflected in this gem you are gazing into also reflects all the other jewels, so that the process of reflection is in itself infinite. Now, open your eyes and know that you are a sparkling jewel in Indra's net, as is every person around you. Every jewel is connected with all the other jewels in the net. Every person is intimately connected with all the other persons in the universe. Each has an independent place within the net, and we all reflect and influence each other. A change in one jewel or person produces a change, however slight, in every other. Realize, too, that the infinite reflections speak to the illusory nature of appearances. Appearances are not, in fact, reality, but only a reflection. The true nature of a thing is not to be captured in its appearance, however powerful that appearance might be. It is yet only a reflection of what is real. In addition, whatever you do to one jewel affects the entire net, as well as yourself. You cannot damage one strand of a spider web without injuring the entire web. And you cannot damage one strand of the web that is the universe without injuring all others in it, whether that injury is known or unknown to them. This can work for good or ill, because, of course, just as destructive acts affect the entire net, so do loving, constructive, compassionate acts affect the entire net. A single helpful act, even a simple act of kindness, will send positive ripples across the infinite net, touching every jewel, every person in existence.
This story of Indra's net from the Buddhist and Hindu traditions invites us to discover and then to imagine ourselves as part of a universe that is a web of connections and interdependence. The story is one way to convey the perennial wisdom that pervades the world's contemplative traditions and indigenous ways of knowing and understanding reality and our place in it. Although it is a perspective that might feel foreign to some of our typical ways of thinking about ourselves in the modern world, Indra's net not only imaginatively presents a worldview that has existed for millennia, but also presents an emerging understanding of contemporary scientists of our essential interconnectedness. Daniel Siegel is a professor of psychiatry at the University of California, Los Angeles School of Medicine, and a prolific author that I've been intrigued with for some time. In his most recent book, Intraconnected, an integration of self, identity, and belonging, he states, "The systems, science, and quantum physics view of the interconnection of all things may be new for Western science, but hardly new for humanity. This teaching has been around for millennia, found in philosophical, indigenous, and contemplative knowledge, yet in modern times, this systems perspective is often hidden from view, absent from our education, and not part of our everyday conversations." He points out that in Confucianism and Taoism and Stoicism, Buddhism and Christian contemplative practices, Hindu traditions, and the indigenous people around the world, All of them convey what we might call ancient ways of knowing, what has been called the perennial philosophy. Indeed, this view of our essential interconnectedness has existed across culture, across cultures, and across time. Some of us have heard of the Southern African notion of Ubuntu, often translated as, I am here because we are here, right? Yes, some of you have heard that? Great. This is a good time to show a little aliveness and a little awakeness. All right, great, good. I see those hands waving in the back. Such an understanding is hard to express and would even require maybe coining new words, as Siegel does in his word, intra-connected. For Siegel, the word interconnected does not fully capture this more refined understanding that he has experienced and feels is so important for us to articulate. He writes, the idea and experience of intraconnection expresses a withinness of identity and belonging linked within the fabric of life. It emerged as a term to describe a sense not merely of being connected to trees and people and places, but rather of connectedness within a whole, a sense of wholeness that is experienced from within. Now, it's way too early in the sermon to share this, but he's also humorously created another word, a pronoun, we, a combination of me and we, to express this experience of intraconnection, a sense of connection that includes a sense of our inner me, as well as our connection to we. We. This is your language lesson this morning. Let's say we. M-W-E. Great. Try that this week in whatever conversation you're in. Just see what kind of reactions you might get. And do it as if it's so casual and everybody else is doing it. All right? Will you try that this week? Good. Okay. Now, bear with me as I offer these words that might seem confusing, yet at the same time invite us into expressing something that might actually be on the edge of our own knowing. You see, language does not always convey our deepest experiences and truths. And when we are at a loss for words, that happens to some of us occasionally, maybe we are at the edge of expressing what wants to be known to us. Even the Zen Buddhist Thich Nhat Hanh developed new words to express this understanding. Thich Nhat Hanh writes, about 30 years ago, I was looking for an English word to describe our deepest interconnection with everything else. I liked the word togetherness, but I finally came up with the word interbeing. The verb to be can be misleading because we cannot be by ourselves alone. To be is always to interbe. If we combine the prefix inter with the verb to be, we have a new verb, interbe. To interbe and the action of interbeing reflects reality more accurately. We inter-are with one another and with all life. Now, Thich Nhat Hanh turns to the understanding of the biologist Lewis Thomas to support his understanding, maybe give it a little more credibility if it feels like he's on the edge of creating some words of things that may not exist for some. But he offers that Thomas describes how our human bodies are shared, rented, and occupied by countless other tiny organisms without whom we couldn't move a muscle, drum a finger, or think a thought. Our body is a community, writes Lewis, and the trillions of non-human cells in our body are even more numerous than the human cells. Without them, we could not be here in this moment. Without them, we wouldn't be able to think, to feel, or to speak. There are, he says, no solitary beings. The whole planet is one giant, living, breathing cell with all its working parts linked in symbiosis. Now, most of us, obviously, were schooled in what we would call a modern world understanding of ourselves as a separate self enclosed in a body. Most of us were infused with an individualist orientation in which independence was a primary value. And we've often thought of ourselves as separate entities interacting with one another across the classical separation of time and space. Even when science has questioned this understanding of the nature of things, such as in quantum physics, this understanding has not always informed or altered our fixed understandings, or even our practices in terms of our relationship with ourselves, with one another, or most significantly, the earth. Scientists have attempted to volley forth a dramatically different perspective, yet our fixed understanding of our separate self, encased in a bag of skin, I'm not looking at anyone in particular, I mean it as a compliment, is what prevails in our culture, especially the culture of the United States, which some anthropologists claim is the most individualistic culture on the planet. If we don't have a language for this broader understanding, we might need to create new words. If we don't have a mindset that captures this, we may need new images. I feel that Indra's net does invite us into this way of imagining ourselves, so that what I offered this morning in that story that Kate read so beautifully and with such a great soundtrack in the back is one way to begin to re-image our understanding of ourselves in the scheme of things. It was notably the scientist Albert Einstein who sought to convey this understanding in down-to-earth terms. In a letter printed in the New York Times in 1950, Einstein wrote to a father who had lost a child. He wrote, "A human being is part of the whole, called by us universe. A part limited in time and space. He experiences himself, his thoughts and feelings as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. This delusion," Einstein says, "is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest to us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of comparison and to embrace all living creatures and the whole nature in its beauty." Nobody is able to achieve this completely, but the striving for such achievement is in itself a part of the liberations and foundation for inner security, writes Einstein. Now, what we are talking about here is not merely an alternative view to our accustomed way of thinking. That being said, we don't want to abandon our Newtonian world view of objects, separate objects in space together. We need both. After all, let's face it, if we're driving home and a Newtonian red light shows up, we want to use our Newtonian foot to press the Newtonian brake and come to a stop. Or, you get it, indeed, we would be one with everything. I felt I needed to provide just a little levity at this point. It was beginning to sound really heavy because all this talk about an interconnected indigenous worldview and all this exploration of new words like interconnected and interbeing, Ubuntu, and we. You going to try it this week? Let's hear it again. Great. you'll be on the growing edge of civilization. This is not merely an abstraction. It may very well be that many of the issues of our time are exasperated by this view of ourselves as separate, solo self alone. It may be a view that obscures reality, as Einstein says, distorts reality, and maybe even imprisons us. Again, this is not to dismiss our care for the inner life. Each of us need to pay attention and give care to our inner life. But it is to recognize that in addition to care, as we must, in addition, care as much for our planet as us as we do about our individual life. It may be beyond the time that we need to make some course corrections. For many of us, I suspect we have been transported on occasion beyond the blinders of this separate self and atomistic and individualistic worldview through experiences with nature, through experiences of awe and wonder, through movements within our own heart and spirit that have also at times resonated in our minds as well and altered our point of view. Siegel states, "Our human family is a deep resource for wisdom passed along through generations, a wisdom still present. But in modern times, it is often heard only as a whisper, rarely given attention or turned into action." It's time, my friends, to amplify that whisper. The role of our religious communities is allow us to understand when we have been captured by worldviews that not only limit our understanding of reality, but also limit our capacity to respond more fully to the situations of our time that need more informed, systemic, and compassionate responses. Could it be that the times that we are in are calling us to amplify what would otherwise only be a whisper? We have some experiences, recent experiences, in which hopefully that whisper has been heard deep within and among us. When the COVID-19 pandemic spread around the globe, it shut down transportation and manufacturing as people were urged to stay home to curtail the spread of the disease. We had a global experience together. There was a pause in our typical relentlessness and our drivenness. It was as if the living ecological systems of the earth seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. The pollution and the excessive speed slowed down across the globe virtually in an instant. Do you remember that time? Are we able to continue to hear what the earth wants us to hear when humanity gave the earth a breather? Two Dutch filmmakers reached out to people within the indigenous wisdom traditions around the globe to hear what wisdom they had to offer the Western world, the modern world, around this experience of the earth being given a breather during COVID. These filmmakers captured this indigenous wisdom about COVID in a film. And I only have time to hold up one of those contributions this morning. It's from someone from the Maori people of New Zealand who said, "It's about connection between us and the cosmos, between us and every single thing in the environment, and us to each other." We know that to go back to what we were prior to COVID-19 would only be a testimony to our collective stupidity. Be the generation that said, "No, enough. We're not lost anymore. We're finding our way home. I suspect we should hear those words from someone in an Indigenous culture resonate in this room just a little longer. We should let them seek in. We should let them convict us and maybe even convince us. So therefore, I'm going to read them again. And this time I will pause afterwards. It's about connection between us and the cosmos, between us and every single thing in the environment, and us to each other. We know that to go back to what we were prior to COVID-19 would only be a testimony to our collective stupidity. Be the generation that said, no, enough. We're not lost anymore. We're finding our way home. I personally feel some sadness as I reflect on these words, wondering what we may or may not have learned from the earth about our essential connectedness during COVID. In our rush to get back to normal, rather than to also incorporate these deeper lessons about our essential interdependence and the necessity of our care for each other and the common good. But alongside of my sadness, there's also a hope that allows me to stand alongside you and say we can shift. We can make course corrections. We can do what we need to do now that we recognize that there are choices and that we have a choice and we can embody those choices right now. Did I hear an amen? All around, I hear voices of those who are calling us towards a new understanding and new practices. Thomas Hubel, in his recent book, Attuned, Practicing Interdependence to Heal Our Trauma and Our World, offers this perspective. The refusal to honor our interdependence and enact healthy and sustained relationships has caused no end of suffering. If the underlying challenge of climate change or any other wicked or systemic social problem can be traced to human disrelation, a state of being out of accordance with nature, ourselves and other humans, then I propose it to be a fundamentally spiritual problem as much as an environmental, scientific, technological, culture, psychological, economic, and historical one. To construct an adequate or sufficiently innovative response to the challenge, we must think holistically. It's time to bridge East and West, to marry the wisdom of our ancient and long-standing spiritual traditions to the revelations of contemporary science. My friends, I believe we are up to the task of doing not just the social, political, and psychological healing, but also the spiritual work to restore our right understanding of our interconnectedness. And when I say we, I don't mean those people, some people over there. I mean us. Us. After all, what calls me to stand before you on any given Sunday is the conviction that I am among a group of people who do care about what we do. We have captured some of what you care about in that recent video that maybe some of you saw that captured 13 of you sharing on the topic, what I, as a Unitarian Universalist, care about. I know that you care about being part of creating the culture and the mindsets that will enable us to respond to our vocation in this time, to be caretakers of the earth, to be tenders of all the interrelationships that we are part of, that in turn also create us. I know that you care about breaking down some of the marginalization that exists in our society that has us assuming that some are better than others, and systems that have reinforced the worldview of separation and racism. In practice, in practical terms, this means that we show up for one another. In practical terms, it means that we tend our relationships to one another and cultivate the practices of connecting, communicating, assisting, protecting, healing, and restoring among ourselves and in the world this sense of deep connection that I am because you are. We have witnessed a wonderful demonstration of this interconnection in our congregation over this past year as we've provided assistance to a family seeking asylum. And we just had a celebration of a year of that work. This required us to say to ourselves that someone else's fate in the world, even though outside of our own continent and culture, is our fate too, and we will provide a home and care for them as well. This required us to listen attentively to one another, to be able to say, do we really, truly have the commitment among us to follow through on this once a family is here and is depending on us? This required us reaching beyond ourselves and developing partnerships with others beyond ourselves and and it required us to have people sign up to be part of that interconnected network of people to provide rides for hospital visits, grocery shopping, ESL, social events, etc. I know through this example and others that we cherish our value of interconnectedness. When I think about this congregation's work with independent living for young adults, filling in a gap of care, compassion, and practical assistance to young adults who have, quote, aged out of foster care, and the ways that we create an informal network of support through our efforts through ILYA by providing all kinds of mentoring and care. And today we'll hear about a project that is happening after the service. I know that this is a demonstrated and practical way of our practicing interdependence. When I think about the many ways that we support one another during times of illness and stress, in informal ways and through our pastoral care associates, this is our way of practicing interdependence. When I think of the ways that people in our congregation give generously of their time as singers in our choir, members of our AV team, worship associates, teaching or facilitating small groups and adult education programs, teaching our children and youth, these are among the many things that we do to practice our care for one another, to embody our sense of interdependence. So I hold up just this handful of examples, and I want to say that this congregation is capable of embodying interdependence in so many everyday ways, and each of us can be part of these efforts. That gives me hope. That gives me hope. Amen.
So this is the time we hear about financially supporting our beloved community. And Reverend Larry just demonstrated wonderful interconnectedness, his brain and mine, because he said, oh, you're going to hear some resonance here. This month's theme of Soul Matters is generosity. And I'm sure that it, in and of itself, has inspired you to give freely for all that we are thankful for here at First U. Your gifts and generosity are deeply appreciated. Thank you. So I want to mention what I feel is the generosity of spirit here. Your warm smiles and interactions every Sunday and in our small groups, they bring bright rays of sunshine to my world. And these smiles are genuine. The generous spirit of sharing and collaboration, there's that interconnectedness again. That happens when we plan a service with our excellent musicians, whether they be guests or our beloved Kathy Harris, our music director. The playful and expansive freedom that Reverend Larry provides us, all in the generosity and trust that this congregation and this congregation gives the lay leaders and us. It's just phenomenal. I appreciate learning how many of us serve in the community, generous with our time and talents to promote environmental justice, health stability for kids aging out of foster care, that's the ILEA program he mentioned, and to promote policies that are anti-racist, helping to bring equity to our community. Because First U gives us a place from which to launch, and it provides a place to land safely to recharge and get inspired, I support this church. Thank you for being such generous and active community members. In order to give now, please note there will be several options up on the screen in a moment, including donating via the Church Center app, the website firstuuwilm.org, and you can also mail a check to the building, or in person, if you're here, you can drop a donation in the baskets as you exit the sanctuary today. And now, please join me in dedicating our offering. To the work of this congregation, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action, we dedicate our lives, and these are offerings. Seth, thank you so much. This guitar has been amazing. So we are all interconnected, and to find out more ways to stay and feel interconnected, please remember to check out our website, firstuuwilm.org. Tonight is the full moon ceremony upstairs in Brunner Chapel at 7 p.m. If you'd like to experience the earth-based ritual to welcome the cold moon, and that's led by our own Circle of the Ash Tree Moon. So please join us. There was a registration link in Friday's e-news. Next Sunday at 3 is a holiday sing-along with the Diamond State Concert Band. Plan to come and sing your favorite holiday songs and stay for a reception afterwards. Speaking of that reception, if your generosity extends to the kitchen or to the grocery store, please bring a treat to share or a snack for after to enjoy that reception together. And today is the last opportunity to group wrap gifts for Ilya. As you exit the sanctuary, you can grab your coffee, and then you'll see the table. It's very festive, you can't miss it, with the gift wrap out and everything. They are still accepting donations, however, so even though we're wrapping today, they're still accepting donations, and if you are inspired today or any other time to join Ilya on Saturday, the 9th of December, from 11 to 3, that's when they're going to assemble all the gift packages for the young adults aging out of foster care. So now we'll move into extinguishing our chalice. If you have a lit chalice at home, please extinguish it while we read excerpts from the poem that was probably written by John Upton Terrell, who wrote the book The American Indian, Past and Present in 1969, but it is often attributed to Chief Seattle. This we know, the earth does not belong to us. We belong to the earth. This we know, all things are connected. Like the blood which unites one family, all things are connected. Whatever befalls the earth befalls the sons and daughters of the earth. We did not weave the web of life. We are merely a strand in it. Whatever we do to the web, we do to ourselves.
Please stand for our benediction, which we're going to do first as an embodied benediction. It's simple. Just lift your hands up to about chest level and let them extend forward, palms up, to your arms' full extent. And now, slowly reverse direction and bring your hands, palms up, back towards your chest. Let's repeat that a few times. Let this represent how we can generously and humbly give to one another. And let it represent for us how we can receive graciously and gratefully from one another. So may it be. Our closing hymn is 10:10. We give thanks.